Live with CDP, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast, live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Now here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP podcast on this Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. Season 3, episode 41 today. I'm looking forward to speaking to my guest. His name is Bud Bailey. He's been around sports for probably over 4 decades, and he's also currently now the writer-editor for the Buffalo Sports page, and he was formerly a copy editor reporter with the Buffalo News for 23 years. He's pretty well covered every sport and all pro sports in the Buffalo area, including the Bills at some point, the Sabres, the Bandits, and I believe he's involved with the Bisons a little bit as well. So I'm excited to talk to Bud today, especially about the National Lacrosse League finals. You got Colorado up 1-0 on San Diego and Buffalo up 1-0 on Toronto. But I had the pleasure of meeting Bud at the KeyBank Center a couple of weeks ago for a Bandits Rocks regular season game. So bear with me, guys, and I'm going to bring on Bud Bailey, and we're going to talk about his career and the current status of the Buffalo sports teams as well. Good afternoon, Bud. How you doing?
Hi, Chris. I know current status doesn't fall off the tongue well easily, does it?
Yes. So sometimes mistakes happen, but I just go with it. So
join the club.
Anyway,
we've all been there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess since we saw each other last time, April 30th, I was going to ask you, what's your thoughts on what happened in Buffalo on Saturday afternoon with the massive shooting?
Boy, I think it's fair to say everyone in Buffalo is hurting. As you know, this thing seems to pop up in various American cities every so often, like a bad virus or something like that. And I've got a good friend of mine who lives in Boulder, Colorado, and some months ago there was a similar type of shooting in a supermarket, again, just down the road from where he lived. I've got a friend of mine from high school who works at Virginia Tech, and that they had a horrible incident some time ago as well. And I guess I just kind of looked at this one and said, well, it was our turn, unfortunately. But boy, the problem here is, of course, that this is an 18-year-old kid who managed to figure out a way to get an assault rifle and drive 4 hours from south of Binghamton near the Pennsylvania state line and just head for a supermarket and open fire and killed 10 people who were just there doing their shopping. It's just heartbreaking for all concerned, and the gunman is now in custody and all that, but it just doesn't make sense. And when that happens, there's just no closure. You just can't figure it out, and we never will, what goes into the head of these people. So it's a sad day as we speak. Joe Biden is in Buffalo doing what he can, making a symbolic gesture, if nothing else, to the families of the victims, and trying to spread a little peace, love, and understanding as best he could, as Elvis Costello once said. It's been quite a weekend, and I mean, even I live in Buffalo, but not close to the shooting scene, and I heard from several friends around the country, not so much in Buffalo, but just saying, what happened, how's the city, how are you, and all that. So it's certainly been an unforgettable time, and I'm obviously at the very tangent of it.
Yeah, and I had Kelly Dudzik from WGR last night, and she was 1 mile away from it as well. And I guess they did have a security guard in the grocery store that was a former police officer as well. My question, Bud, I was going to ask Kelly this too. How does an 18-year-old kid get all this military armory stuff as well as the rifles? Because New York State apparently has one of the toughest gun laws from what I've been reading up in the States.
that remains to be seen, Chris. And I know that he had threatened to do something damaging around high school graduation, and somehow he got through the system and was allowed to make that sort of purchase. And I think we'd have to read that 180-page document, which I really don't want to do if I can help it. 180 pages of hate is a little much for me, but somehow he managed to get through, and certainly they have to look at everything. But the tough part is this happens in other circumstances in other cities, and we don't seem to be making any progress and towards getting along and solving the problem. And what we've been doing is clearly not working. And the sooner we realize that and take a hard look and start making some decisions, we're not going to get to the goal of getting along better with each other.
And I was going to say this, as much as I love sports like anyone else, it puts everything into perspective in the big picture.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that's easier to say than do because we get caught up in our lives, and that's only natural. But I'm not sure what it's going to take to have a thorough examination of the issue, and that's too bad. But here we are.
So I was going to say, and I was just in the area on Thursday over in Niagara Falls and Amherst, and I quite frequently go into grocery stores when I come across the border as well. And you should feel safe being in a grocery store or at a mall and that. But I guess things are going to, but then again, Tops did have a security guard. So you just never know when something like this unfortunately can happen.
And the supermarket in that case was in a region which had never had a full-fledged supermarket before, and it's really a center of the community, and they've been very good about security there, and it's such a needed part of the town and in that neighborhood, and to attack there just seems more cruel than any other spot, I could guess. It's always going to be difficult, but to do it in a supermarket there, the symbolism is rather strong and haunting.
I was going to say, and you've been covering the news in Buffalo for over 4 decades, so this must be one of the most horrific stories you've seen in your career.
Yeah, fortunately, been in the fun and games business, Chris, as we like to say, the toy department, and I haven't been affected by that too much. We had an accident some years ago where literally a plane dropped out of the sky onto a house in Clarence Center, and in my case, the site of the plane crash, which killed everyone aboard, was a block from the house of my best man's mother in Clarence Center. And again, death just struck. So, to all these innocent people, we're just taking a plane ride from the New York City area to Buffalo out of nowhere. And that was obviously a huge story in the time. This is, the same sort of incident in the sense that a guy just from Binghamton, of all places, decides, well, I'm going to go shoot up some people, and drives 200 miles to do it, and happened to be here. It could have been Albany, it could have gone to Scranton, whatever, and he just picked here. And everyone's now, paying for it and trying to deal with the consequences.
I was going to say, were you surprised that I guess the Justin Bieber concert went on Saturday night, and then the Bandits game was Sunday night? Were you surprised they didn't postpone them, or do you think it might have been better for the city to have that kind of entertainment just for a couple hours?
That is never an easy decision, and I'm glad I didn't have to make it. In the case of the concert, I know that these things get planned years in advance, and certainly some segment was looking forward to it, and to cancel it would have had all sorts of ripple effects, and some people think it would be appropriate to cancel, some people wouldn't. So that's a really hard decision, and I'm going to duck the question about whether it was appropriate, just to say I'm glad I didn't have to make it. With the game, I think it's a day later and everyone's upset, but they're professionals and they deal with all sorts of issues, whether it's personal or citywide or region-wide or whatever you want to call it, and they have to make that decision, and it's not easy just to say, all right, let's not play for another week, and there's booking dates, and it's a complicated situation. So it could have been an option. I guess they talked it over and probably went to civic leaders in both cases and said, what should we do, and got some advice.
Okay. And I kind of want to get on to the sports thing now too. I just wanted to ask you, Bud, thoughts on the game on Sunday night against the Toronto Rock. I guess the crowd was over 10,000 people, and I saw the game on TSN here. It was the game of the week, and I just wanted to get your thoughts overall on that. One of the best games I've seen.
Yeah, that might have been as good a lacrosse game, indoor lacrosse game, as I've ever seen. And I saw the first game here in 1992. I missed some for between 1994 and 2008. I wasn't covering the team or anything then, but I thought the level of play was superb. The defenses and goaltending were just helpless. It was back and forth, and the intensity was amazing. And even though there was so much emotion, in part because of the circumstances, in part because it was a playoff game, there's so much emotion. There was one penalty in the entire game, and it didn't result in a power play goal. So it was 18-17 or whatever the final score was, and no power play goals at all, and 0 for 1, 0 for 0 on the power play. Just under normal circumstances, you'd say, what a great ad for the National Lacrosse League, because that's how this sport can be played so brilliantly and well, and how exciting it can be. It's almost like a poster child for the sport as a whole. Now, I got down to the locker room, and I was surprised that all those involved in the Bandits jumped right into the conversation about the incident the day before, and I think they were all a little surprised at how that motivated them, and they kind of took out their emotions and frustrations put it into the game. It could have been a deadly dull game where everybody was flat and not playing, but instead somehow they summoned up the energy to direct it in a different way. And I guess that's professionalism and to a certain extent, and you have to salute the guys that are involved. And you think of Toronto, which obviously is walking into a difficult situation and doesn't know what to expect. And Toronto matched the Bandits in terms of level of play and intensity as well. And credit them. That was an extremely difficult situation to walk into. And they did a great job, and certainly, boy, came within an inch or two of tying the game twice in the last 8 seconds. And so anybody who thinks Toronto is dead in the series is obviously mistaken, because those people showed everyone what they're made of in that game.
I was going to say overtime. If there wasn't overtime, would it have been 5 minutes, 10 minutes? How would that work with
sudden death? I believe sudden death.
Sudden death. Wow.
The way the regular season works.
Okay, just wanted to check, because I'm still learning all the time about the game, and like you said, that's a great way to market your sport. And I hope the game this Saturday night in Hamilton will be half as good as this one was on Sunday night.
We can only hope.
So I'm crossing my fingers and hoping to be at that game Saturday night at the First Ontario Center in Hamilton, because it's only about a 40-minute drive from me. And the Rock fans are pretty crazy too, like the Bandit fans.
I obviously haven't been to a game in Hamilton yet, because Buffalo's one appearance, they didn't allow fans in the building. But
yes,
I did go to Toronto several times to cover games there in the 2010s, and it, for whatever reason, the fans that were there were fine, but they just didn't have enough of them, and it's still a little odd to see them play in Toronto shirts in Hamilton. I'm not sure I'll ever get used to that, but that's the formula we came up with. I don't know how Hamilton thinks. It seems like they're awfully bitter rivals in the CFL and go back and forth because they're so close. And now they're borrowing the team. I guess if the Blue Jays can play in Buffalo as a home team and call themselves the Toronto Blue Jays for parts of 2 years, then maybe that makes sense, and we're getting in new parameters. But it is an odd arrangement. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I talked to Pat Gregor about it and about a year ago as well, and I was one of the guys that was against it. But just being at that game against San Diego in April, they had over 8,500 fans, and it seems like the city of Hamilton has taken them in. And their lower bowl is almost full. The upper deck isn't. It's a big arena there, 17,000. But I think it's actually worked out well. They signed a 5-year lease, I believe, with the city of Hamilton, and I was one of the ones that thought it was a bad idea, but this year it seems to be very successful, and they've had good attendance there.
Well, I will say that I'm sure the lease to get in what was formerly the Air Canada Center. I don't even remember what it's named now.
Scotiabank Arena,
Oh,
yeah.
that's right. But I'm sure the lease was killing the Rock there because it's probably $75,000 or whatever just to open the door for a place like that. And when you're drawing whatever the number was, 6, 7, 8,000, and I'm thinking in terms of actual fannies in the seats, not including freebies. The franchise must have lost a lot of money playing there. So I'm sure they got a much better lease deal in Hamilton to play their games, and good for them. You do what you have to do to survive, and they're doing that. So if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, we just move on. But it's been a tough year for the entire league in terms of attendance. There was nobody over 10,000 a game, and the Bandits were at 9,900 or whatever, and everyone else trailed down there. I think an average attendance for the league was down a couple thousand per game. Yes, the pandemic played a role in that, but what else is going on? Most of the bottom teams and the attendance derby are new expansion teams, and you just wonder, is it working? Was this the right approach? And that's one of the questions that the NLL is going to have to face going forward. And they don't even have a commissioner right now or assistant commissioner, as those two spots are vacant. So whoever they find for those jobs has a big task to figure out how to get the momentum back, which it started to build on in the previous years.
So we'll cross. And then I was going to say thoughts on the Vegas Desert Dogs coming into the league.
Oh, I'm just not convinced it's a good idea. I don't know. The whole Southern Sun Belt expansion idea, I don't think has worked particularly well so far. Atlanta has gotten a little better than it was, but I remember when the first couple of years, the Bandits went down to play a game, and someone was on the coaching staff was talking and looked around and said, "When are they going to open the gates?" And was told, "Oh, the gates are open." Fort Worth had some crowd that looked like it was in 3 figures this year early in the season. I don't know if it picked up because the team did, but it's a tough sell, and I don't know of Lacrosse having any sort of natural base in Las Vegas. Now, there's always people going to Las Vegas, always. Then those people are looking for something to do, but I just wonder how good an idea that was, and we'll see. I know they've got some money behind it, and the San Diego owner, but boy, I never thought of Vegas as lacrosse country, and I'm going to have to be sold. To me, the natural base for indoor lacrosse is essentially along the Canadian-U.S. border, and you can draw that from Seattle to Halifax. That's where they've had the most success, especially in Canada, because the game is sort of pre-sold up there. But there's places like Buffalo where it's done really well, and they had a team in Detroit for a while and a team in Pittsburgh, and that didn't quite work out. So we're all kind of guessing here, and as I said, someone's going to be paid some money in the near future to guess how the league changes its focus now under a new commissioner.
I was going to say, and I was one of the critics about the Vegas Golden Knights, but so far in their 4 years, they've done fairly well there.
Yeah, they have a great marketing program, and they were a winner right away. And the Big Four sports sell themselves these days. Here in Buffalo, I was looking into the history of the Braves recently, and the Braves sold 7,000 tickets for their first ever game in Memorial Auditorium back in 1970. And these days, a new team comes to town, and you just get a honeymoon period because there's so much excitement to have a major sport come into town, and the Golden Knights had a spiffy arena and brilliant marketing and a great team that did so well those first couple of years. Now they're in the playoffs, and now we'll see how Vegas does. But there's so many people in Vegas at a given moment on vacations that you'd have to think that team's going to do quite well. In fact, there's talk of putting a baseball team in Las Vegas at some point. Oakland would probably be the logical candidate for that. And under Dome Stadium, see what happens with there. Again, the audience is pre-sold. The fans are in the area. They just need something to do, and there it is down the street.
And I can see the NBA going to Vegas within the next 5 years as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's probably fair. They've been fooling around with that and playing summer league camps and that sort of thing. And now that they have the arena, which is an issue, that's probably coming.
So I guess, like I said, they did hire Sean Williams as their head coach and general manager, and I had Brian Shanahan, who's a lacrosse legend here in Canada, on, and he's an analyst, and he thinks that was a great hire by the Vegas Desert Dogs and getting Sean Williams in there as well. So I guess we'll see.
That doesn't hurt. I've known Sean for a long time, and always gotten along well with him. He's always been good to me and a sharp guy. There's so much more than that determines a team's success. And I'll tell you, Bob Hamley is one of the best guys I've ever heard of. He's the GM down at Panther City, or Fort Worth, Texas. And but that team struggled this year on and off the field. They got better as they went along, and I think that's a credit to Bob and his staff. Tracy Koleski, another guy I knew when his time with the Bandits. But it's not easy to win, and as the number of teams go up, your chances of winning go down, at least on a percentage basis. So good luck to them. I think they know what they're getting into. It's not going to be easy.
But I'm definitely a new fan, and I'm definitely going to go to some more Rock games, if not in the playoffs. Definitely next year in Toronto and Buffalo.
Okay. We'll hold you to that.
Definitely. And no, I just love the sport, and I'm still learning about it. And like I said, it's exciting, and hopefully more people get interested in it. And it's nice to see TSN doing games of the week, and then ESPN Plus. And I know the Bandits are on the radio as well. And hopefully, like I said, more exposure for the league will be good. But one thing I was going to say, they really need to get a commissioner hired for next season, or soon, I guess.
Yeah. And it's amazing how fast it comes. You look at the schedule now, and we'll be done with this season in June, and that means 6 months till the start of the next season. And it's amazing how fast the off season goes when you're trying to change the league around. There's been a couple of different philosophies of changing. The old way was to try to find NHL teams to get another occupant in the building, and that's worked very well in Calgary and Buffalo and Colorado. And we thought that was the model, and now some other cities like in suburban Atlanta and Fort Worth and Vegas and San Diego have come along, and Halifax has drawn well, but it's a smaller building, and you just wonder where they're headed. As somebody told me, there's only so many guys out there who have the money that want to buy a lacrosse team, and some of those people just don't know anything. They might like sports, but they'd have to be really sold about the idea of lacrosse. And it's not an easy sell to someone who knows nothing about the game. And you can bring them to a Bandits game or a Rock game or whatever and show them. But even so, it's a big jump to say, okay, I'll invest $5 million plus who knows what else in startup costs to get this team going. So it's wait and see time, because everything's on the table, I'm sure, right now.
That was going to be my next question. How much would an expansion franchise right now go for a lacrosse team?
I know it's been a few million in the past round. I'm not sure the exact number off the top of my head, but they want people who can afford it and are able to avoid problems if there's a slow start. You don't want to get caught up with bounce checks and all that sort of thing. You want to get individuals who are responsible for all the payments involved. And so they've found some guys in various places. The Pagulas not only own Buffalo, but own Rochester, which has not gone as well economically or on the field lately. But they own the Rochester hockey team and wanted more dates in the building. So the Nighthawks were a good fit, and they got the expansion team once the Nighthawks went to Halifax. So again, New York would seem to be a good place for it, but the Riptide has not drawn well at all and hasn't had much success, even though Jeff Teat had a heck of a year this year. And it's a good building block for the team, but it's a long way to go.
I was going to say, and I had Ashley Miller on, a sideline reporter from the Albany Firewolves, and she said their last game in Albany, they did draw over 6,500 fans. So she's hoping that will build forward to next year's team in that area as well. And she said it's a huge lacrosse area in Albany, but it's more of a field lacrosse area now.
Yeah, U of Albany has had several great teams over the years, and some players have made the transition into indoor lacrosse in the NLL. So I don't know if Albany helps them. I mean, if you're ESPN, do you really care if Albany's one of your teams that's going to be on the network? I would think not. But that was the decision when it's certainly better than Norwich, Connecticut.
I guess they were called the New England. They were New England before they moved to Albany, I believe.
Yeah.
So.
But they played at the casino, and the team was something of a loss leader with the casino there. And
wow.
Then when the economy sort of soured, the people who own the casino really didn't want to get into money-losing propositions, partly because of the pandemic.
And I was going to say, I don't know if it was you or Pat that brought this up, but these guys don't make that much money a game. Like, I think somebody said around $1,000 US a game.
Yeah, I haven't heard any numbers in a while, but I assume it's fairly close to that. It's kind of a hobby. It's an interesting hobby. And I think of a guy named John Harrison, who was a Bandit some years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7, whatever the number was. But he literally worked in public works in suburban Toronto to the point where he drove a snowplow when necessary. And here's a guy that Monday through Thursday, maybe till Friday afternoon, drives a snowplow in the winter, gets a shift done, hops in his car, drives to Buffalo, checks into a nice hotel, practices the next morning with the Bandits. The next night, he's playing lacrosse in front of 18,000 people cheering him. And he's getting paid to do it. And it's like such a charming story that's indicative of the NLL, that it's just guys out there who are doing it basically for the fun of it, and more power to them. It takes a lot of dedication to succeed at this level, and to squeeze it all in with a full-time job, which almost all of them have, is pretty remarkable. For those of you who don't accept the high salaries in pro sports, and we can argue about that for hours, it's always been fine with me because they've earned it. But if you like the guys who are just playing for the quote love of the game unquote, well, walk into a lacrosse room, because you got to love it to put up what they're doing for relatively little money.
And it's not an easy sport to play either.
No,
definitely not. That's why I love the CFL too. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge NFL fan, but I love the CFL because the fans can actually relate to the players, because a lot of them still have off-season jobs as well as playing the CFL, and that's why I love these sports where people can relate to these athletes.
Yeah, in most cases, though, Chris, I think it really takes such dedication to reach this level that it's good that they're getting financially rewarded. And I'll tell you a story. I was talking with Derek Plant once, who was a Buffalo Sabre in the mid-'90s for the most part. Awfully good guy. And I said to him once, I know the level of dedication that it takes to get in the National Hockey League and the hours you have to put in to do so. Said, I don't begrudge you guys a penny of anything you get for that reason, because you're at the top of your profession and you've worked really hard, and you're doing something that warrants people spending money on seeing you play. And and I'm saying, great. And he said to me, I was told in high school that the only way I was going to go to college was to earn a scholarship. The parents didn't have the money for anything else. So if I was going to go to college, I was going to have to work and get that hockey scholarship. And he worked in Minnesota and got the scholarship to University of Duluth and played a year or two there. And then the Sabres picked him up and signed him in '94 or whatever it was. And he had a nice career, probably capped out at $1 million a year for several years. And now he's done some coaching up at Minnesota Duluth and some scouting for the Blackhawks and living the dream. And good for him, because that's what he knew what he had to do, and he did it. And more power to him.
Okay. And that leads to my next question I wanted to ask you. We've already talked about the Bandits, but thoughts on the current state of the other pro sports teams in Buffalo right now? Obviously the Bills, the Sabres, and the Buffalo Bisons, because I'm a huge Bisons fan too, by the way.
Well, the Bills are obviously the centerpiece right now. They came so close in the playoffs last year and losing in 13 seconds to go in regulation, an amount of time that's going to live in infamy around here. But they've picked up some good free agents. The smart guys in Las Vegas have them as the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year. I don't know if I'm that sold, but clearly times are good. And take it from a city which watched a football team go something like 17 years without a playoff game. The fans here are enjoying the ride and are almost too optimistic about their situation, but things are good. The Sabres, on the other hand, haven't made the playoffs in 11 years or whatever we are counting now, 10, 11 years, and just been awful, and they're trying to rebuild again. There's probably a little hope for a change here. Kevin Adams has come in and revamped the roster by getting rid of Eichel and Reinhardt and Ristolainen, and I think his idea and his approach has been sound. You just don't know if it's going to pan out. You don't know if the biggest question that he doesn't know right now is where's the goaltending going to come from, because there's nobody who you'd really throw into a playoff game and say, okay, he can lead us there. And you really need somebody like that. Maybe not to get to the playoffs, but to do something certainly when you get there. And that to me has been one of the faults of the Maple Leafs, in that they haven't had a terrific goaltending for the last several years. And maybe at crunch time, they've been good, but not good enough. And I think you need that element. And the Bisons, they're just kind of sailing along. They're the Blue Jays farm team. So we've had players like Guerrero and Bichette and others pass through here. And there's no complaints from that. The minor leagues are tough because you get a good player come along and you see him for what seems like a game or two, and then he's gone to the major leagues. And that's part of the bargain, but it's always fun to play on a Saturday, go to a game there, see Friday night fireworks or Sunday afternoons or whatever. And I get to do the pitch clock for some of the games, which is an interesting experiment they've installed in the minors. And this year they changed the rules of the pitch clock a bit, and it's really cut into the playing time by about 20 minutes. And take it from a lifelong baseball fan, baseball needs more action crammed in, and the amount of time between pitches has to come down. And even when the pitches are over the plate, they're often the three true outcomes, as it said, walk, strikeout, or home run, which doesn't really leave much action. So they need more singles and doubles and triples and chances for the fielders to show just how good they are. And hopefully the minor leagues are playing a role in paving the way for the major leagues to solve their problems and make it a better, exciting game that'll catch on. But nobody wants to see an 18-inning game these days, especially in the minor leagues, and people want to see more action, and that's fine. The baseball fathers have to think up ways to give it to them.
I was going to say, and the pitch clock is what, 30 seconds for the pitcher to get the ball?
It's actually in AAA right now, it's 14 with nobody on, 19 with somebody on.
Okay.
So that's even faster than that. And it's very strictly enforced now. They might give you a second leeway time, but it's go. And if you're not ready to go on the mound, it's ball one automatically. The umpire will call that. And it took a while at the start of the season for people to get used to the newer regulations, tougher. And now they seem to have gotten the hang of it, and the games move along. We had a game, probably early May, that was 2 hours and 5 minutes, and we were like, wow, it wasn't even 1-0 with a 3-hit shutout. So I think they're addressing the problems and trying to see what works and what doesn't.
What's your thought on the extra innings where there's a runner at second base with nobody out? You a big fan of that as well?
I'm in the minority, yes, but I really am.
Okay.
Especially in the minor leagues. You can't find anybody who wants to see a 15-inning minor league game. The players don't want it. The managers don't want it. The pitching coach certainly doesn't want it because you pull out your bullpen in no time. The fans don't want it. The concession stands don't want it. The concession workers, the on-field workers in the building, the announcers don't want to see it. It's one thing to do it in the playoffs, and I think we should play for keeps in playoff games, but to move things along, I think the runner on second has worked pretty well internationally in softball, etc. And I gotta say I like it, and the purists just can't stand it that the games are shortened in the regular season now by having the ghost runners in second. But boy, the top of the 10th starts, and you've already got the runner in scoring position, and one swing, and it's somebody takes the lead. And now I will say I'm not a fan of the shootout in hockey because I think it just seems too contrived, and it's almost like I always call it the home run contest when you go into it. But it just seems a silly way to decide a game. But and having each side get a guy on second, yeah, I think I'm good with that, and I'd like to see it adopted full time upstairs.
I have to admit, I was one of the naysayers because I grew up in the 70s and I was kind of old school. But yeah, it's not a bad thing to do because you're right. It eliminates those 15, 16, 19 inning games and stuff like that. And you're right nowadays too. But today's audience, they want to be out of sporting events between 2.5 hours.
Mm-hmm. And that does not mean a 3:40 game is optimum.
But I'll tell you this: the shootout, I'm not a fan of, and I rather have teams have a tie again than to decide a game by a shootout.
Yeah, I know ties don't sell in hockey.
Yeah, that's true.
With casual public, I understand that, but the one thing I thought the NHL should do is change the point system so that if you win in regulation, you get 3 points. If you win in something more than 60 minutes, you get 2. If you make it to overtime or shootout, you get 1. And if you lose in regulation, it's 0. The whole thing with an uneven amount of points per game makes no sense at all to me. Let's reward teams for winning the game and as well and change what we've got now. 3-2-1-0 makes a lot more sense to me. The standings might be a little ugly, but that's okay. I think we can live with that.
What you just suggested, that would be a great idea, and the NHL should consider looking at doing that. Is there any talk of them even considering doing that in the future?
A column I wrote about 3 years on the subject, and apparently was not well read by NHL executives, Chris, so didn't go over, but sometime they'll get to their senses, I hope.
I hope so too. So that leads to my next question I wanted to ask you, bud. Are you still okay for time?
Yeah, I got about 10 minutes.
Okay. What has been some of your most memorable sporting events you've covered in your time in Buffalo, and some of your favorite athletes to interview Buffalo and from some of the visiting teams?
Wow. I guess I better expand my time to 40 minutes or 40 hours. Well, I covered the Bills from games from like 79 through 93. And I caught their Super Bowl era. So I saw the game, for example, that the Bills are trailing 31-3 in the third period and won in overtime. I've covered some playoff games involving the Bills, a couple of AFC championship games. I covered all the Sabres Stars final in 99. I've been to bunches of other games, around town for various reasons, and I haven't caught every significant game, but certainly, a good share of them one way or another. So in that sense, I've been pretty lucky. Interviewing, boy, that's a tough one because there's a lot of different people. I've shoved a microphone in Wayne Gretzky's face and asked him a few questions, and Wayne was a delight. But one thing I did get to do was I wrote a book with Rob Ray about his career, and Rob was the tough guy of the Sabres for a long time, and he's now the TV broadcaster. And as down to earth and nice a guy as you'd ever want to meet. And it was really enjoyable to sit down with a guy like that and just kind of figure out what made him tick, and find out about what his life. And just as an example, Rob Ray knew at some point that even though he was a good hockey player by almost any definition that you and I might come up with, that he was not an NHL player. But he was told, if you want to make the NHL, the only way you're going to make it is be able to take a punch in the face, literally. And he made that conscious decision to do that. And he went up to the NHL and he played for 12 years or whatever the numbers were. And now he's a commentator who's been on the job of the TV radio broadcast for several years and probably has a job as long as he wants one. And it's so good to see a guy like that have his life's ambitions fulfilled for all the right reasons, that he accepted the sacrifice and the responsibility and did the job and has gotten a reward for that. But for the most part, a lot of the guys are pretty normal in sports. They're, I think getting to see them in all circumstances is rather humanizing. And there's probably no goofier guy around in a good sense than Steve Priolo, the Bandits defenseman. The interviews with him are always hilarious, and you may have seen one at the end of the regular season. But he's just an awfully good guy. One time we were flying to Saskatchewan for the NLL finals out of Toronto, and Steve and I started talking about the league structure and future and all that, and suddenly we were so wrapped up in it that I finally heard the guy in the PA saying, "Last call for the flights to Saskatoon." It's like, well, Steve, we better get on this. We kind of dashed in to get on the plane. But John Tavares is as good a person as you could like in that role. If you ask him good questions, he'll give you a good, honest answer, and even have a little fun with you, and so on down the line. There's a rule that the more you make, the less likely you are to be down to earth. And I noticed that with hockey players. Once the big money started coming in, the players were a little more inaccessible. But that's what really makes it fun to talk to some of the Bandits, who are, again, more like you and I. You and me?
Definitely. I was going to say, and John Tavares just got put into the Canada Sports Hall of Fame here.
Yeah, I congratulate him on that. I wasn't the night to really get into it, I guess, on Saturday, but that's pretty good to be in the Sports Hall of Fame for the whole country. We don't have an equivalent to that, so I can imagine it's quite an honor. But he is the greatest indoor lacrosse player in history by almost any definition. He's got all the records and played for almost a quarter of a century. So good for him. And I used to joke. I started covering the team in 2009, and I joked with him. It's like, okay, it's time to do the will John Tavares retire this fall story, or this after this season story. And like, yeah, I know. Well, we'll see how I feel. And I think I did 5 of them. Every early April was like, okay, let's get the John Tavares story out of the way, because that's the way it was. He's still playing well at 43.
Wow, and I was going to say, and I had the pleasure. Have you had the pleasure of speaking with Brian Shanahan?
I haven't seen him in a while. Pandemics will do that, but
yeah, good guy.
Yes, absolutely, and I know how smart and effective his brother Brendan has been in NHL circles, and is obviously leading the Leafs now, and was on on the group that tried to reinvent hockey after the 2005 lockout. So I'm not surprised. Brendan's an interesting, articulate person, and I miss talking to him because it was always good when he'd show up for a game in Buffalo.
Yeah, because I could have spoke to Brian about lacrosse for hours and hours. So he was a really good guy, Maple Leaf fan, and I unfortunately I predicted they were going to beat Tampa Bay, but unfortunately they didn't. And I have a gut feeling there's going to be some changes within the Maple Leafs management structure in the off season.
Well, you lose 5 games, 5 years in a row, and 7th games, I think it is. Obviously something's just a little off. They do have tons of talent, and it's just not the right combination. And I'm not sure if new guys would change anything, because the old guys obviously got them a long way. So we'll see how it goes. But this is the type of event where you do have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, what have we got to do to get better? And that could be a lot of different things.
Yeah. Okay. And I just got 2 last questions I want to ask you. This one I had to ask you. Can you just tell us about the 12 books you've written so far? And I guess you've already mentioned about the Rob Ray book, which I'm going to purchase because I love stories like that. And what is the process like in writing a book?
Ooh, the short answer is it depends on the book. In Ray's case, I brought a tape recorder, literally, out to his house, and we'd sit down for a couple hours at a time and go over certain parts of his career, step by step. And I had a copy of the Sabres history handy, but I'd say, like, okay, when Dominic Hasek got into the huge mess in 1997, you were an observer of that. Tell me about that. So it's a collaborative effort, because I'm kind of poking to see where it gets. Other books I've done are more research oriented. Like, I had an idea for the newspaper to do This Day in Buffalo Sports History, and I looked up various things, and somebody said, well, that would be a interesting daily feature in the newspaper. Okay, so I did that for a couple of years, and I said, the response was terrific, and I said, okay, maybe there's a book in this that's almost already written. And so it turned out there was, and I got it printed in 2013, and I'm doing a similar book for Cleveland this fall. You just looking around in every resource you can, trying to find out what were important sporting events in Buffalo or Cleveland's history, and going from there. So there's all sorts of ways of writing books. Several I wrote on non-sports subject for kids. School books, if you will, and the subjects have ranged from Ichiro Suzuki to Jackie Robinson to the Brown versus Board of Education that desegregated American schools, to the Pilgrims coming over, and on it goes. The most dismal title was Geography of the Soviet Union, which it's hard to make the geography of Soviet Union interesting, but with the Ukraine invasion, suddenly the Russians' insecurities about their border seemed extremely relevant. So writing that book really helped me learn about that part of the world, and that's unfortunately information that comes in handy about now.
Okay. And if somebody's interested in buying one of your books, what's the best way of doing it?
The easiest approach would be to search me in Amazon. The Buffalo Sports History book is at buffalobooks.com or org. I forget it, but you can search me. But Amazon has I have an author's page on Amazon, and you can find it. The school books are designed for high school and junior high readers, and might not be in depth for someone in your audience, but
okay.
As somebody said when they asked me what books I'd written and I rattled them off, they said, wow, that's quite a range. And I said, yeah, I never claimed to be a typical sports writer. So I just sort of fell into that job of writing books on assignment, if you will, and they're not bargain priced by any means, since they're sold to schools, but occasionally you get a used copy on Amazon or whatever. So Amazon's obviously a real good source, because most of them could be found there.
Okay, because I'm going to look at getting the Rob Ray book because I love stories like that. And this leads to my last question. I wanted to ask you, how did you come about your current role with the Buffalo Sports page? And I'm going to put you on the spot, Bud. Who do you see coming out of the West for the National Lacrosse League and the Toronto Buffalo Series? And who do you predict to win the NLL Championship and MVP? And also where my audience can find you on social media.
That's 8 questions at once. I retired from the Buffalo News in 2017, and literally 2 days later, Buffalo Sports page called and said, you know, interested in writing, and I said, well, I need something to do, and said sure. And the website had big plans when it first got going, but had some setbacks and just couldn't find an audience. And now basically I'm the editorial department. We get a couple contributions from other people, but we're kind of waiting to see what happens there. We got somebody bought the rights to the website who does a high school website, and we're waiting to see how that shakes down. There's talk of a podcast there or something, and I'm not sure what the future holds for it, if anything, but it's been a good vehicle for me. I've done things like write the 100 biggest trades in Buffalo sports history, or the biggest stars by uniform number in Buffalo sports history. And I covered the Sabres for 4 years. They cut out my media pass without telling me this past season. So the Sabres coverage went down to 0 from every home game. So what are you going to do? We'll see what happens in the future, but at least I'm keeping busy. NLL, I would think Colorado's in the driver's seat now because it was a pretty even series, and winning the first game in San Diego was a huge step forward. And it's hard to believe that Colorado's going to take its foot off the gas now. San Diego hasn't played well down the stretch, so I think Colorado advances. I don't have a clue about how Buffalo and Toronto are going to match up, just because the past game Sunday was such an outlier. You don't know what that says about the two teams under those emotional circumstances. I could certainly see Buffalo getting a little flatter and losing up there in Toronto, and then game 3, well, who knows? Anything can happen. So I'm not, I always say if I wanted to make predictions, I'd go into if I knew anything about predicting the future, I'd buy lottery tickets, which I don't. So, but I think it's impossible to judge the respective teams. But I know they're both good. I know it should be good games. I know Buffalo has a lot of depth on offense and is well equipped to handle it. But boy, Toronto's come on and played really well down the stretch, and so I still think it's pick 'em. You give Buffalo the edge for being up 1-0 in a best of 3, but I hardly think it's over.
Are you going to come down to Hamilton to cover the game, or are you going to just watch it on
I'm not.
TV?
I got a previous commitment and won't. So I'll just, if there's a third game, I'll wait for one. I know I'm going to see another game in Buffalo. I just don't know who's playing.
I'm hoping to go to that game. I do think there'll be a third game, and I agree with you, Colorado. I'm going to go with Colorado and Buffalo, and with the Bandits winning the championship.
Well, we'll see who's right.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to have another opportunity to work up in the media section again, because John from the Bandits set that up, and Leah Clements as well, and I had a great time, and I hope to do that again in the future, and continue to be a big fan of the National Lacrosse League as well. And but I was going to say I've probably kept you longer than I was supposed to, but I want to say thank you so much for coming on my podcast today, and definitely I'd like to have you as a guest again in the future.
Hey, no charge. We retired people have lots of free time.
Okay, well, again, thank you so much, and enjoy the games this weekend coming up. Both of them are Saturday night, so that'll be 4 or 5 hours of lacrosse we'll be watching Saturday night. Thank you so much, Bud. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast with Bud Bailey. He's currently the writer and editor for the Buffalo Sports page. And again, he was a former longtime copy editor and reporter for the Buffalo News in their sports department. So you can check out Bud on Twitter at WDX288. I have that, or sorry, WDX WDX2BB. I don't have excuses. I have my glasses on. So WDX2BB on Twitter. And you guys can also check out his website that he writes on. It's called the Buffalo Sports Page.com as well. And just to let you know, guys, the NLL finals, Toronto lost 18-17 to Buffalo. Bandits are up 1-0. And the next game is this Saturday, May 21st at 7 o'clock at the First Ontario Center in Hamilton. Colorado, San Diego, game 2 is this Saturday night at 9:30 in Colorado as well. And let's see, guys. Also, I want to just let you guys know my next live with CDP podcast is going to be tomorrow night, Wednesday, May 18th at 6 p.m. My guest is going to be Ryan. I hope I pronounced this right. Ferzonovic. He's from the Scout CA. He works along with the Ontario Hockey League Scouts with young players that get developed or drafted into the OHL. So Ryan's going to be my guest at 6 p.m. I hope I pronounced his last name right as well. So I hope you guys can check that out. And also, guys, you can check out the OHL Conference Finals. They're opening up this weekend, Friday, May 20th, North Bay and Hamilton. And the West Final will start Flint and Windsor on Saturday, May 21st. I'm predicting the Hamilton Bulldogs and the Windsor Spitfire to meet for the 2022 OHL Championship. And just to let you guys know as well, the NBL of Canada playoffs, round 1, game 2 are tonight. You have Windsor at London, game 2 at Budweiser Gardens at 7 o'clock. And you have the Kitchener Waterloo Titans at the Sudbury 5 at 7 o'clock from the Sudbury Arena. Both series are 1-0 Kitchener, 1-0 London. You guys can check both those games out tonight on National Basketball League of Canada TV as well. And also, guys, the NBA Finals, Boston, Miami, East Finals tonight. Game 1 tonight at 8:30. I'm predicting the Celtics in 7 over the Heat, and I'm predicting the Golden State Warriors in the West to defeat the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games as well. And before I wrap up my podcast, guys, just to let you know, Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded to Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn as well. And you guys can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. And that's pretty well it, guys. I hope, like I said, before I go, you can check me out on wordpress.com/home/live with CDP podcast .wordpress.com. I'm going to be doing another blog this weekend, most likely on the Bandits Rock game this Saturday night from Hamilton First Ontario Center. If anybody's interested in going to that game, go on to the Toronto Rock .com website, and I'm crossing my fingers I'll be able to go to that game Saturday night, 7 o'clock game, and it should be on the TSN game of the week as well. And you guys can also check out the National Lacrosse League website, nll.com/schedule 2022 playoff broadcast schedule as well. So, and that's pretty well it for today, guys. Again, you guys can follow Bud Bailey on Twitter at WDX2BB. And you can also, like I said, he writes great articles. You can check him out on buffalosportspage.com as well. And I think that's pretty well it, guys. Again, my next Live with CDP podcast is going to be tomorrow night, Wednesday, May 18th, 6 p.m. My guest is going to be Ryan Ferzonovic from the scout.ca. So hopefully I pronounced his last name right, but I'm looking forward to talking to Ryan about his hockey career and how he got into scouting. And he's now the director of scouting for the scout.ca. And he works alongside the OHL with these young players that get drafted into the Ontario Hockey League. So that should be an interesting podcast show with him tomorrow night as well. Before we go, guys, I'm going to show a little clip of the post-game conference between the Bandits and Rock from Sunday night at the KeyBank Center. 1 second, and I'm just going to, and this is going to be the Buffalo Bandits star, Dane Smith, who had 7 goals and 3 assists for 10 points in this game against Toronto. And Josh Byrne had 4 goals and 7 assists, 11 points. Just 1 second, just a little bit of the post-game conference from the Bandits Rocks game from Sunday night in Buffalo.
You had, putting aside personal accolades and the win, just being able to feed off the crowd and knowing, as much as they're giving you, you're giving them something way more.
Yeah, it's incredible. The crowd definitely showed up. I don't know how many fans were out there, but it felt like it was a sold-out crowd, and they've been honestly our backbone all year. I know with COVID, it's tough times, everything going on in the world. It's incredible that they showed up tonight, and we wanted to do it for them, and that's a huge one for us as well, because obviously in play a best of the 2 and 3 series, you have to win the first one, and you have to win at home. So
Josh said you had a pregame speech that kind of just hit home for everybody. Can you take us through that? Can you kind of say?
Yeah, I mean, it gave me goosebumps. Again, I'm not the type of guy to talk too much, and I'm a shy guy. I don't like to talk about my feelings. I did get emotional before the game regarding what happened yesterday in Buffalo. Obviously, it's tough for everybody, especially everybody in Buffalo, but the world in general. And basically, my story was just for me, my why is I play lacrosse because I love it, but also because I want to show kids of color that they can be at the top of their level, make it pro, and get out of the neighborhoods, or the tough neighborhoods and stuff like that, and make it where they are today. And also just you have to pretty much play your game to the best of your ability, and you don't know when your last day could come.
Dan, I would assume you had no idea what sort of game it was, and you wind up playing as exciting an offensive game as I've ever seen. Kind of out of the blue. I don't know if just the emotion fueled things and you got on a roll, but it was amazing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been struggling down the stretch, or teams have been focusing on me more, but my goal going in was to work a little bit harder, and the team's going to go as far as I try my best to lead the team to the best of my ability. And I felt like, again, the goals and assists, it doesn't matter to me, but I need to be the hardest working player out there. And again, the goals and the assists came with it.
Dane, what have the last 24 hours been like for you? Just from finding out the news yesterday to now playing tonight and being in front of the crowd and being able to put a smile on the face of the fans and come home with a win and go back and you're up 1-0 in the conference final. Just seems like it's been like a roller coaster the last couple days.
Most definitely. And you know what? Like, just hearing about it yesterday, it didn't hit me until today, to be honest. And just seeing everything going on, like on social media and whatnot, and seeing faces, I think is what kind of, they obviously put faces of the people that passed away. I think that's what kind of hit home for me. And again, it wasn't a speech to kind of get the boys going, because I know they're hyped up for the game, but it was on my chest, and I felt like I had to speak up for it. And yeah.
Josh said this is like a medicine game. Like when you look at a game like this, being able to, how do you think you could help maybe the Buffalo community heal through sports? I mean, it seems like this is something that could be bigger than the game of lacrosse.
Most definitely, and we preach that. There's people you play for, and communities you play for, and the city you play for, and it's one of those things where when I'm on that floor, nothing else matters. And again, I wanted to get that point across, and we wanted to win for the city of Buffalo tonight, because I know they are emotional. Everybody's emotional at this time, and if we could bring a smile to their face just a little bit, it meant a lot.
Did you seek out advice from some of your fellow Black lacrosse players? I know you've put that group together. Group chat, anything that you talk about with those guys at all?
I didn't really say anything, honestly, until I got to the rink. I didn't know what to say, and again, it almost brought tears to my eyes. I knew I had to say something, and again, I brought up my past and how hard it was, and I didn't want people to feel bad for me, but the biggest thing was the kids, the next generation, and teaching people around me that we need to do a better job to teach the older people or the younger people that it's not okay. And any way I can get my message across to the best of my ability, I can. I will. Sorry.
I'm not sure I've seen everybody have a good night for the Bandits, especially offensively. But you look through and there's just so many heroes, and everybody's got stats coming out. It's interesting how the whole team reacted to the situation, I guess.
Yeah,
From 1 to 20.
Right, and it's one of those things where I feel like our defense has been very great the past few games, and our offense has been struggling. And the whole year they've been talking about the offense. And yes, we were putting up the numbers, and our defense is always great though. And you're going to have those games where our offense is going to break out, and thank God it was tonight, because everybody showed up offensively, and everybody played their role, and we have a great system. JT put it for us, and we were able to execute.
Anyways, guys, that clip was courtesy of the Buffalo Bandits YouTube channel, and that was a post-game conference with the Buffalo Bandits star forward Dane Smith. They call him the Great Dane. In that game, he had 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points, and Josh Byrne had 4 goals and 7 assists, 11 points. So the next game between the Bandits and Rock, Game 2, Saturday, May 21st, 7 o'clock at the First Ontario Centre in Hamilton. You can get your tickets at torontorock.com, and that game will be on TSN, ESPN Plus, and the Buffalo Bandits radio station. If it's not on WGR 550, it should be on the Bet 1520. So anyways, guys, I'm going to call it a podcast. But again, I want to say thank you to my guest, Bud Bailey, the editor writer for the Buffalo Sports Page, and former longtime writer with the Buffalo News, for coming on and talking about his long career in journalism and in media, and covering Buffalo pro sports teams, and also talking about the National Lacrosse League. So I hope you guys have a great day. And I hope you guys can tune into my next Live with CDP podcast, Season 3, Episode 42, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Again, my guest is Ryan from the Scout.ca, and we're going to talk about the scouting process and his work as director of scouting for the Scout.ca. Thank you to everybody watching this live on YouTube. Please hit subscribe notification if you already haven't. And thank you to everyone watching on Facebook Live and Twitter, and later on audio, my audio platforms as well. So I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock for another edition of Live with CDP podcast. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and enjoy the NBA and the NHL playoff games tonight.